So I'm at the point where I joined my two panels together. Um, I've worked my row, chain 5, single crochet into the a third of the previous row's chain 5. And I've done that all the way around to the point here, which is where I tied them together. And I'm going to chain 5. And I'm going to continue. This is all you did was create two rows, as opposed to you split the one row that you had on each panel into two, and now you have one row for one leg and you have the other row for the other leg. Now you can see this is where they're tied together, and I'm going to chain 5, and all you're going to do is continue working, and I'm going to move to the next, and I'm going to continue the stitch sequence pattern for my desired length for my shorts. 3, 4, 5. So there's only one other thing I need to review, which is the tip I gave about the stitch marker. You will need to place another one. 4, 5. And the reason that you'll need to place another one is that when you when you combine the two panels and you make them so you have two new rows, which is going to constitute the two leg holes, you will notice that one of the sides won't have a stitch marker, which is to remind you, and you can see that this side does for both. So now you're going to have, on each leg, you're going to have the same as you did before, because you're still working the same two-row sequence. So you're going to have to, for me, that's going to be, that's going to be on this side. This side is where, I am going to, when I put my single crochet into the third of the chain 5, I'm going to chain 2 in DC. And then once I work that double crochet, I'm going to place a stitch marker to show that when I'm working this new row, this side is going to be the double crochet side, and this is going to be the chain 5 side. So that's the one other thing that's going to change. The same thing will happen when you're doing the other leg. One of these is going to end up being the side that, it's going to end up being the side that the stitch marker's on, and one of them is not. So just to summarize, once you, let me see, I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see more of my garment. So this is where I started. So this was my front panel, and we left off. The instructions tell you to take your two panels to, just so y'all can see my tails, to take the stitches that you marked on the front and the back panel and tie them together, which you can see I did there. And you can see you're just going to continue working your chain 5. What you're actually doing is making the single crochet on this one and this one single crochet. So you're not skipping anything. And this is what produces that continuous mesh pant without a disruption or a noticeable disruption in your work. It's figuring out how to join it in such a way that it doesn't make the piece awkward. So again, in terms of measuring for your desired length, you want to measure along your edges. You want to, as you're working to stretch out, you want to, lay your measuring tape out on a flat surface in front of you, and you want to take the edge. And this is what you're going to use to measure how much further you have to go in order to reach your desired length. My recommendation is that you use the front, because the front is going to move down slower. You can also... You will notice that on the measurement list, you were instructed to collect your outseam, which is the outside of the leg, from the waist to the floor, and your inseam, which is from the crotch down to the floor, and your inseam. So you're going to use a combination of those. And basically what you're going to want to do, or what helps me, so this is more like a tip. If you don't need to do this, that's fine. But several times as I'm working, as this grows into, let's use these, as it grows into two separate legs, which is going to happen as you work more and more rows, of course. It's going to split and you're going to have noticeable. So my two single crochets tied together are here, okay? Just to show you this same work done. So this is where my two single crochets are tied together, and you'll notice there's no disruption in my chain 5 spaces. Try to see if I can manipulate this for you to see. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Let's put my hand in here. Let's see. So it has the legs, which makes it kind of difficult. But here is where my knot is, right here. These are the two sides, so the two split in the leg. So here is where my two middle single crochets are tied together, and then you can see that I simply continued working my new rows, which make my leg. The longer they get, you're going to see a noticeable split. Now, as I measure the outsides of my for my stop point. So I use mostly my outseam. You can use your inseam if you want, which is why I included it as a measurement to collect. But I use my outseam. And again, you know, you have to imagine this is before any of this is added, anything that you're adding to the side. So just to recap, you're going to lay your measuring tape on a flat surface, and you are going to, I use my front panel, but you're going to stretch that edge, and you're going to basically continue measuring from until it reaches your outseam. And so that's the outseam, your desired outseam. So for me, that is roughly to my knee. So I measure from my waistline to my knee, and that is how I determine where I'm going to stop. The next time that we meet up, or I intend to meet up, is once I have reached my desired length on each leg. Give me a second. Once I have worked the rows necessary over here, and then repeat it over here and work the rows necessary, the same amount of rows. Oh, one other thing that I wanted to just show you, like how I count the number of rows I've done so far. So I start with this one. This is 2, and then I only count these big ones, and I count them on 2s. So in this case, this would be 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So I have 10 rows on my front panel as of now. As I continue working and checking my measurement, then that'll give me how many rows that I have. So that's one of the things, and that's one of the things you're going to be instructed to do. So I'm just going to give you a heads up on how you're going to, one of the ways you can count. There are other ways to count your rows. This is just the way that I use. And for me, it works out. I don't, you will notice I don't count these small rectangular. I do count them, but I don't count them directly. So this, my foundation half double crochet is always is my row 1. And so this first bigger opening is going to be 2. So I'm at 2 rows already. Now, if I were counting each one, this would be 3. But since I'm not, I can go ahead and count on 2s and go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, so that's how I count how many rows I've completed thus far. And as it grows in length, I continue counting that. Once I reach my desired length, I go ahead and count and write down how many rows I end up with from the front panel and the second panel. Now, this part I will probably repeat later But I wanted to go over it at this point because right now we have a fairly small, it's easier for me to demonstrate on camera because the piece is smaller. The bigger the piece gets, and the more that's added to it. So just to go back to these again, the bigger it is, the harder it is to kind of get everything in frame that I'm trying to explain to you guys. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm, stopping at the proper points to really point out how to move forward on your next steps, okay? So for me, actually, what I'm about to do is one of the things that I noticed is my panels are not facing the same direction. When I look at, so I'm going to actually take this down and I'm going to flip one of my panels so that my stitches are facing the same direction. And the reason, what made me notice it is that as I was working once I passed to the point where they're joined together, and I don't know that you'll be able to see this or not. So these are the back bumps of these stitches and these are the fronts. That means that when I'm working this new row that I created in this direction, when I'm working this new row, once I pass this midpoint, I'm actually working the opposite. That's not my desire. And so what I'm going to do is go ahead and I'm going to use a darning needle. I'm not going to do that on camera, but basically, so what I'm advising you is to make sure that before you tie those center stitches together, that both of your panels, the same stitch face is facing. Whether that is, it doesn't necessarily matter whether it's the back bumps or the front of the stitches, the front V's. What matters is that they're facing the same. So as is the case with this, what you don't want is what I just showed you. You do not want where the backs of the stitches, the back bumps are facing you on one panel and the fronts are facing you on another. You want them both to be facing, because like I said, you're making a new row. That's all you're doing. You're just going to continue working. After, the most complicated thing you're doing is tying those two center single crochet stitches together. Let's see. Now for me, if I can find one relatively quickly, which, okay, here's one. So I'm basically just going to find where my knot is, and I'm going to take down the, I'm going to just go ahead and take down the knot that I made. And I'm going to do it carefully so that I can see, so that I don't lose the stitch that it's in. Okay. So I want you to see me gently pulling this apart. Okay. I'm also going to go ahead and take my crochet hook and I'm going to insert it into that stitch and just let it lay. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull this side out, holding that single crochet. And the reason I'm doing all this is just to not replace my stitch marker. And I'm going to put my hook in there. I'm going to take my tail and I'm simply going to repeat my knot. And I'm going to pull it through. So here's my two tails. Now my stitches are both facing the same side. And I'm going to correct that error I just made by going ahead and putting a knot in that center stitch, and voila, I've repaired it. Now both of my panels have the back bumps facing me. Okay, so being that this is at the end of your front panel, I said do not fasten off. So here's where I didn't fasten off. And the row that I was on was one where I need to chain 5, which everyone should be on if you follow the instructions that I put in the unit. You should be at a row where it's time for you to chain 5 single crochet into the chain 3 of the first chain 5 space, chain 5, and then repeat that. You're going to repeat that until You're going to repeat that until you get to this one, and you're going to continue the same exact way. So once you place that single crochet in the third chain of this chain 5, you're going to chain 5, and you're going to place a single crochet into the third chain of this chain 5, and you're going to continue. So all you're doing, I can't oversimplify this enough, all you're doing, what you've done by splitting this is you've taken these 2 rows, worked back and forth on each panel, and you have created 2 new rows that joins your 2 panels. So now we're just going to work, of course, as you're working, because you have it's joined together, it's not going to be like that. But in effect, what you're doing is now you're working rows like this for each leg. That is how you're composing these shorts. So the next time we meet up, like I said, oh, one other thing just to review, because I already did, but so you will notice the tip that I gave you about placing your stitch marker on the side, on the row with the with the chain 2 double crochet to end off the row. You will notice that now they should continue. Now that I have my panels facing correctly, you see this is the side with my chain 2 double crochet into the last stitch, chain 1 turn, single crochet in the first stitch. This side is where it starts off with a chain 5 single crochet into the chain 5, the next chain 5 space. So you see there's no stitch marker here. However, there is here. Now keep in mind, when I come back over here, I'm going to join with a magic knot to this tail, and then I'm going to resume, and this is going to be, so you're going to use those same stitch markers. If you chose to use my tip, you're going to be, this is still your reminder in terms of which end of your leg as you're working is the one that should end with a chain 2 double crochet to emulate the last chain 5 space, and the new row should start with a chain 1, turn your work, single crochet into the first stitch, working all the way back around. As a reminder, the second sequence row is one where you are going to chain 5, turn your work, single crochet into the first, and then repeat that around. So there's no need to remove. If you did utilize the tip, you're going to continue using that tip to tell you and denote which end you're on. The time that I find this most useful is when I've cycled through to another project and I'm coming back and I'm picking up my work again. That's when this is incredibly useful to me as a reminder of where I am and what I'm doing. So if you have any questions as you complete this, please put them in the comments beneath this video. I will add this video to the unit as a demonstration video of the last step that was completed after this live is over. Here you can see I've already started this row. Just one more time, when I get here, I'm just going to continue working as though I never did this. I'm going to continue working because this is just a new continuous row. When I get to the point when I've done enough rows to my desired length for my leg, I'm going to then fasten off, and then I'm going to rejoin on the other side, and I'm going to repeat the same number of rows. So at that point, I would say to go ahead and count the number of rows you ended up total, and that'll give you a guide for how many you're going to add on the other side. But again, if you have any questions or were confused about anything, wasn't clear, please just drop it in the comments, and I will absolutely get back with you on that. Okay? I love you to life. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.